as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen.
It's a little bit past 9 a.m. I was looking forward to bringing you guys to Mass this morning, at least to see the outside of the church, but I attended Mass this morning at a Dominican seminary where the church was kind of sequestered away. It was kind of difficult to get any shots, but we will see what we can do in the future as we attend other churches. The gospel reading today was from Luke, recounting the road to Emmaus, and I had actually heard once in a Bible study that it is hypothesized that the person with Cleopas on the road to Emmaus when they see the risen Christ actually was Luke, and that it's possible that the world's greatest Bible study was given to Luke on the road, and that is why Luke is so rich in his typological references that are woven into the gospel. We don't know. Obviously, this is just a hypothesis, but it's a very interesting one to think about. And the homily on today's gospel was talking about how with our 2,000-year-old vantage point, hindsight bias, we may look to Cleopas and his friend as foolish or blinded in not being able to recognize the risen Christ when he was right there, just days after his crucifixion. And I think it's kind of ironic because all of us on our roads to Emmaus are tempted with unbelief, with doubt, and ultimately are blinded by our own sins and attachments. And it's never going to be the empirical proof that convinces us or convicts us of our faith. It's never going to be that airtight logical argument. What is it and what was it for them? It was seeing Christ for who he was in the breaking of the bread that they came to know it was him. And then what happens? He vanishes. And I think that's what we have to remember, to listen and to remember who he is in the breaking of the bread. Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, April 23rd, and I have to introduce myself. My name is Sean Noriega, and I feel very odd doing that because I've spent probably the last decade in the public sphere in a completely different niche, and I hope that it stays a completely different niche in the sense that I want to meet lots of new people and, solidify an identity that is separate from the lifting community. Like I said, my name is Sean Noriega. I am a Catholic. It feels good to introduce myself as that first, because typically how this goes is that I am a powerlifter and powerlifting coach. And for those watching this who maybe do have the overlap and already know who I was, I have been powerlifting and coaching powerlifting for about a decade now. And a few years ago, I came back to the fullness of the faith in the Catholic Church. Thanks be to God and thanks to my parents. I was baptized as an infant and I did receive First Communion as a child, but in early adolescence, walked away from the faith. It wasn't really until my early 20s that I came back, and being able to reintegrate with the life of the church, to participate in the liturgy, to receive the sacraments of confession and the Holy Eucharist is such a gift, because I had not yet actually been confirmed. I was actually just confirmed this Easter Vigil along with my fiance. I had waited to do that so we can go through this process together. But it's been such a gift for the past 2 years to be able to participate in the fullness of the church as it's a daily, living thing. It's just, I'm very grateful for it, because I know for my fiance, who is a convert, having sat through so many masses with me and just itching to finally receive the Blessed Sacrament, I can only imagine, how eager and frustrating it can be at times to have to wait that way. But yeah, I live in Texas, And yeah, it's crazy to like, I'm trying to think how to like give you guys an introduction that's just not like exhaustive, but like I'm not originally from Texas, so I'm trying to think, do I tell you guys, you know, what my whole process has been like? And I think not. I think it's probably best suited to just leave it at this, that I am a Catholic, I'm a powerlifter and powerlifting coach. And the reason I'm starting this channel is to bring the faith, it's really two parts. It's to bring the faith to those who maybe are following me from another platform, or just looking for someone who is not the apologetic Catholic type, or not a Catholic priest getting on here giving you guys, you know, rich homilies and spiritual direction, but just a regular person who loves Christ and his church and has a myriad of other life things that he's going through. And I would just like to give you guys, I think, the day in the life sort of walkthroughs, detail what my prayer life is like, what I'm thinking about or contemplating with what we've been exposed to in the readings at Mass, or what I'm getting out of the divine office, or what I'm just getting out of my prayers, be it the rosary or just some kind of night prayer or examination of conscience. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. And you know, one of my good friends who's actually much more well-known on the YouTube, in the YouTube sphere, Johnny Candido, actually became Catholic pretty recently as well. And him and I just had this conversation this past weekend about how I think cool it would be to just expose the lifting community, who may in large part not be Catholic or Christian at all, to expose them to the faith and what it looks like being told through someone who is relatable to them, and then to maybe establish more relatability for the Christian community in someone who is, you know, just another sinner, another layman, who is not down the rabbit hole of apologetics, although I do very much enjoy that. So yeah, it's like I said, it's 9:30 right now. I'm gonna start making some breakfast. I'll show you guys briefly what I'm doing for breakfast this morning and what my days look like. But yeah, I'm excited and appreciate all of you guys tuning in, and we'll see where this channel goes. So to give you guys an idea of what the day-to-day looks like, usually start with morning prayer, as you guys saw, and then I'll go to Mass, have breakfast, and then, like I said, I'm a powerlifting coach, and what that usually entails is, unfortunately, just living on my phone a lot of times, answering athletes, but I love what I do, just wish I didn't have to do it on the phone, and then writing programs. So usually beginning of the week, usually Monday through Wednesday, Monday through Thursday, I'm writing programs for the next week, or even, you know, couple weeks, for all the athletes that I coach. So now that we finished breakfast, that's what I'm gonna go ahead to do now. Usually after that, I'm taking a break to read. Right now, I'm reading, let's see if you guys can see this. Reading The Glories of Mary by St. Alphonsus Liguori, the moral doctor of the church, one of the moral doctors of the church, if not the moral doctor. I don't know what his exact title is. This is actually recommended by Johnny Candido, the guy I mentioned at the beginning of the video. It's a really, really powerful Marian devotional. Basically, the book is kind of broken up into sections that then have subsections, and then there's a format to each chapter. So for the first few chapters, I'm about like a third of the way through, and it's breaking down the Hail Holy Queen prayer kind of by each stanza or each, you know, set of verses essentially, and that's the chapter title. And then it's going into how Mary fulfills that role of the prayer, and then there's an example of how she's fulfilled that, and then there's a prayer at the end of it. And a lot of the writing is Liguori's own masterful commentary, as well as just quotes from other saints who corroborate the same idea. Johnny's much deeper into it than I am, but I'm going to commit to this. I'm sure some of you guys fall into the same trap, or you know, problem that I have, which is that I started this during Lent and I've gotten about a third of the way through, but I also coupled it with reading 2 other books. I was reading Garrigou Lagrange, 3 Ways of the Spiritual Life, and then Augustine's Confessions. And I like being exposed to a breadth of information, but I think that both just logically as well as a very convicting homily I listened to just yesterday were like, it's better to read 1 book and have a library in your mind than to read a library and not have enough to write 1 book. So we're gonna stick to this until we finish it, and then we'll move on to the next one. Probably gonna restart the Lagrange book because, in all honesty, I don't think that I could have digested it fully, bouncing back and forth between multiple books, because you obviously have to recall where you left off whenever you pick it back up. But yeah, I'm gonna go work for now, and then I will probably see you guys around lunchtime, and then we'll head to the gym. So see you guys in a bit. Okay, so we are back for lunch, and I realized that I kind of just brushed past what I meant by programming as my job. It's not like computer programming. I coach powerlifters all over the world, and at the high level of powerlifting, what you're actually doing day to day matters significantly more than it does for like a novice, someone who's just getting into the gym. It's really difficult to make progress when you're at a high level, and the expertise of high level coaches is in a lot of what goes on the page and what they're doing day to day to make sure that they can make as much progress as possible and show up strong for their competitions. So that's what I do. That's my primary form of work, what occupies most of my time. And thankfully I was able to get through a lot of that early. So I'm eating lunch now. I don't know what kind of Lenten penances or disciplines any of you guys took on, but one of which was giving up red meat and just all land animal meat. So I only ate fish during all of Lent. And I'm not typically like a lean meat person, but this sirloin tastes great after going 40 plus days without it. So I'm gonna eat this in a bit, but I actually wanted to reflect on something because, you know, I had a conversation with one of my friends the other day telling him like, you know, I wish, like, I'm rejoicing in this Easter season, but in a way you kind of look back on your Lent and you think of all the things that you wish you had done better, the ways that you could have shown more fidelity to God's grace, that you could have held to certain disciplines, been more penitential, spent more time in prayer, all this sort of stuff. And I had said to him, I was like, you know, I wish that, you know, Lent in a way was still going on. And that's not to say that you turn things off once Lent is over and stop your acts of penances and devotion. But there is something special about the season. And he sent me a really good reflection. I believe it's a homily from St. John Chrysostom that I really wanted to read to you guys, because I'm sure many of you are watching this and you're trying to think, you know, okay, of my Lenten disciplines, which of them do I want to keep going forward? Which of them am I going to do away with for the sake of time and having a realistic work schedule, making sure I'm meeting all my obligations, be them professional or family related? And I just wanted to read this to you guys, and I'll put it up on the screen. The divine Chrysostom says, even a man living within a city can imitate the life of the monks. Indeed, even a man who has a wife and who is occupied with the demands of his household can pray, fast, and learn contrition. For those who were first taught by the apostles, even though they were living in cities, showed the same piety as those who lived in the deserts. Again, others, such as Priscilla and Aquila, ruled over workshops. Also, the prophets had spouses and homes, as did Isaiah, Ezekiel, and the great prophet Moses. And these things did not hinder them at all with regard to virtue. Let us therefore imitate these people, and let us continually offer up thanks to God, and let us constantly praise Him. Let us cultivate self-mastery and all of the other virtues, and let us bring into our cities the way of life which is sought in the deserts. I think that this is just really, I don't know. it's very steadying, I would say. It just reminds you, of course, that the Christian life is one of penance, and that should always be the center of your life, right? It's not like we are free from penance and that our rejoicing is devoid of keeping our eyes fixed on the cross and going into the desert with Christ. So I was very thankful to him for that. He's one of my groomsmen actually in my wedding. He's Eastern Orthodox. He's not Catholic, but very devout and a very good friend. Which, circling back to the original question, I'm curious, and I want you guys to leave in the comments below what devotions, penances, disciplines that you undertook during Lent, and which of those you're going to keep going forward. Because again, I mentioned Johnny Candido earlier. I had a conversation with him the other day about okay, if my day starts with morning prayer, and then I'm gonna go to Mass, and then I'm gonna pray the rosary, and then I'm gonna do a spiritual reading, and then I'm gonna read the Bible, and then I'm gonna do night prayer. If I kept that up for all 365 days of the year, I think I'd have a lot of difficulty keeping up with my work. And that's just obligation-wise the way things are. So we were talking about okay, well, of these, which do we feel are kind of, non-negotiables? And the two that we came to the conclusion of were daily Mass and the rosary. So I think going forward, what I'm gonna be doing is I'll do morning prayer, because I think that it is the most important thing to do upon waking up, and it's so easy to just reach for this guy, right? So keeping the morning prayer and divine office in the morning, daily Mass and rosary, and then some kind of spiritual reading, be it scripture, be it, the glories of Mary, kind of like I was showing you guys earlier. And I'm finding, I think that's been very manageable thus far. Granted, we are early into the Easter season, but I think that's what I'm going to keep. So I'm curious what you guys will do going forward. But I'm gonna eat my lunch now, and then I think I'll probably see you guys next at the gym. I love that I'm using this coffee table as a seat, but we had some friends stay with us this week and had to move some space for an air mattress, so this works out perfectly. We're at the end of the day today, and I was just thinking about how there's such a fine line between kind of overfilling your spiritual discipline plate to the point where things that should be really contemplative start to feel like chores, and then also recognizing that prayer is hard work, and it's not always going to be, answered, at least in the way that you expect it to be answered. It's not always going to be this you're super excited to pray and all this. It's work. And there's a fine line to tiptoe there. And I think that being outside of the confines of Lent, there's a tonal switch in a positive way where, I didn't get a chance to pray the rosary yet. I'm gonna do it before bed after I shower and stop talking to you guys. But there's a different tone where, you have a rigorous checklist for all the things that you want to stick to. And when you don't meet them, you're like, oh, I didn't get to this. And then you feel overwhelmed. And then it becomes I have to do this thing. right, to check it off the list. And now it feels like I get to pray the rosary, and I'm very excited to pray the rosary. Not that I wasn't during Lent on the whole. I mean, most of Lent I was thrilled to. It really became a much deeper spiritual practice for me than it ever was before. And to go along with that, it's kind of funny, is like, I had read that, like, Alphonsus Liguori, I think is who I read it from, but it was recommended traditionally that during Lent, with the exception of Sundays, to only pray the sorrowful mysteries and then to pray the glorious mysteries on Sunday. And I'm a pretty naturally just like melancholic, contemplative person. And for me personally, I feel like I can drop deeply into the meditation and the contemplation of the sorrowful mysteries more easily than the joyful, for sure, and still more easily than the glorious. So for me, I was like, oh, this is great. I get to pray, 6 days a week, the sorrowful mysteries, and I got a lot out of it. But I didn't think I would be so excited to pray the joyful mysteries, and that's what I'm going to do today. I know that, well, actually, I don't actually recall what Wednesdays are, now that I'm thinking about it. Someone will let me know, and I'll probably know by the time I finish filming this that whether today is actually the scheduled prayer of the joyful or not, but I'm very, very excited to do that. But today was a good day. It's actually refreshing to be back in front of the camera for something that's not powerlifting related. Obviously, I showed you guys my lifting a bit earlier, but it's not a point I'm going to belabor because that's not going to be the point of this channel at all. So yeah, I'm very much, like I said, looking forward to seeing how this goes. If there are certain things that you guys want to see me talk about, whether it's, I'm sure someone's going to ask at some point, what was your conversion story, both from being an atheist your whole life and then like why Catholicism? I'm sure someone's going to ask those questions. So there'll be a video down the road where I cover that. But for now, we're just gonna let the days go by days. And yeah, it's been it's a very fruitful Lent. I would love to hear more of your guys' stories about yours. And it's amazing how much you get done when you're not distracted by this. And now I think I mentioned this earlier, forgive me if I didn't, that I know I have to get back on Instagram to a meaningful degree because my lifting is part of my career and then my coaching is my career. So I need to continue to promote coaching, promote the coaches who work on my coaching staff and the miscellaneous other businesses I have within the space. For those of you who know, you know what I'm talking about. But one of my buddies recommended me this app, Opal, where you can just select the apps on your phone to which Opal will restrict your access for your declared number of times or amount of time. So if you say, I want to be allotted 1 hour a day of Instagram, and within this work time frame, I'm not permitted any access at all, you can just lock it down, and that has been great. It's almost like I need another job to fill in this space, but yeah, I'm looking forward to everything. I don't really know how to even close out this video. It feels weird. I always have a pretty good flow and format for videos when I'm talking as Sean the Powerlifter, but this is very new. So I appreciate all of you guys for watching this first video. I'm gonna go get ready for bed. Pray the joyful mysteries tonight for a nice change, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.